Hi everyone, my name is Scott Dennis, and on today's podcast, we will be talking to two tech leaders. To my left, I have Damian Michael from Innovo, and to my right, I have Kerushan Govender from Blackbox. I'd let Damian introduce himself and what Innovo does.
Great, thank you very much. My name is Damian Michael, founder and CEO of Innova Networks. Innova was founded in 2013, and the reason why I founded Innova was to help small and medium enterprises expand and grow using technology and best of breed. And that's the reason why Innova was founded, to help SMEs.
It's amazing, Damian. Quite a thrilling story. And over to you, Mr. Kerushan Govender.
Mr. Kerushan. Okay, we'll go there. So I'm Kerushan Govender. I'm the founder and CEO of Blackbox. We started in 2017 when I moved back to South Africa. And my goal was really to help tech companies get their solutions known to a broader audience. And this is why we do what we do.
And this is a question for both of you. How was the early days of starting your companies?
Terrible.
Terrible.
Worst thing ever.
What obstacles did you run into?
Oh my goodness. Can we you start this one? I'm just gonna sound like the jaded founder.
Well, I started obviously before you in 2013, and obviously as a guy coming from the corporate industry, I've been working for Vodacom, MTN, and I was part of the team that rolled out Neotel. So I had 15 years working for corporate, and then you now leave this corporate company and you're starting a business from scratch. So there were a lot of obstacles that one needed to face. Number one is, do you have the funding to do it? Number two, do you have the marketing money to spend to generate the marketing message out there and create the brand, employ people? So these are all the things that we as founders have to basically ponder about. And especially during that time where we had other companies that's just launching into the country, and we as an organization was competing with the big brands like Vodacom, MTN, Neotel, and we were launching a company in the ICT sector. So you have, especially in South Africa, most small businesses or companies want to deal with bigger brands. So you're dealing with launching a company in a market whereby you have to have a really good product, good service, good brand, and you've got to be trustworthy in the market. And then you have government regulation and a lot of red tape, which you need to comply with in order for you to penetrate the market. So those are the kind of challenges we face as startups or founders or entrepreneurs.
And how did you go about overcoming the crowded market, like you said, with the big brands and that? How did you overcome that challenge?
Yeah, I think it's very important that when you launch a company, you have to build on the relationships and the networks that you have previously. And I think that's fundamental to any business. Who is your network? And I went to my network and provided a service and provided a solution, and pitched for business. Went to networking events and those kind of things. And you then build a trust with the people that you network with, and that's how you start developing your brand, your pitch, your idea, and from that you look at what the market needs and you start developing products and services for that. And that's how we started to build our PAVX that we built, and our omnichannel contact center.
And why the name Innova Networks? What was the story behind that?
Yeah, I think when you start a company, it's always important to have a really good name so that it resonates in the mind of the consumer or the company. So Innova it's a Latin word for innovation and new. So Innova was about new innovation, and networks is about we have relationships and agreements with all the big major networks in South Africa, and we wanted our customers to come to one service provider, and they could get a quote from any network in SA, with the likes of MTN, Vodacom, Liquid Telecom, Ccom, Bitco, and so forth. So takes away the pain from you going to Vodacom and Telkom and MTN. We do that on your behalf, so you can get a quote from one provider rather than 10 different providers.
Multiple providers, yeah, 100%.
And don't you also have that volume purchasing benefit that I won't get if I went directly to a Vodacom?
Yeah, absolutely. So when you build a relationship with a big organization, and especially when you providing them a lot of business, you have that bulk purchasing power. So if you go and say, I want a particular service, you'll get a consumer price. But as Innova, we can go and say, hey, we're giving you so much business, I want an executive decision to discount this price for me, and in most cases we do get it.
Yeah, and don't you have like the best rates in the country?
We do. And you get it as well.
Yeah, exactly. I know this because I get it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then over to you, Mr. Founder of Black Fox, aka my boss.
Yeah, what do you want from me?
So, talk to me about the early days of Black Fox. What did you run into? What was your thinking behind starting what you created?
Interesting. I didn't know, Damian, that you had come from corporate as well, huh? That part of your story I didn't know.
Okay.
I have a great amount of respect for anyone who leaves all of the creature comforts of corporate and they go into the toils of entrepreneurship, right? The spoils of corporate and the toils of entrepreneurship. I did the same thing. So I was at Microsoft for a big part of my career, and I had no idea that you had such a similar story. So for me to give up, like I think I was doing really, really, really well at Microsoft. I was definitely not one of those that was ushered out the company. And it was a big choice. It was an intentional choice that I made to leave this massive portfolio. I was running a book of business across the Middle East and Africa, 80 countries. We were doing at the time about $250 million in my portfolio a year. So it was a decent business. So to leave all of that, all the benefits that come with a nice, big, sizable business, and then I left and I moved to the US and I just went into the entrepreneurship game full on in the US. And there I was backed, or I was working in concert with someone who was had deep pockets. So he was very happy to invest in a new entrepreneurial play. So that's how I got my toes wet.
Oh, wow.
And then I started seeing all of these amazing business development tools, these expansion tools, these marketing tools that the US, it was just being used by everyone. And I was like, in Africa, for as long as I was here, and I was always involved in business development, marketing, sales, we never used the bulk of them. So that's how I had the idea to just pool all of these tools together and take it back to the same networks that I had, back here, because I was, I'd spent so many years across Africa and the Middle East that I had a lot of networks here. So I thought, let me just take those solutions, those products, and repackage it and make it available to the key people here that I've always worked with. And I know for a fact that they're trying to grow their software businesses. Okay, because I grew up here, my career grew up here. So and that's how Black Fox was born. That's how the concept came to be. Little did I know that when I started, it would be terrible. I mean, you're talking about marketing and getting your name out there and just becoming known. My goodness, you say it and it doesn't sound that bad, but when you're on the ground and you're trying to get your brand out there and you're trying to get your name out there and you're trying to knock on doors and you're investing so much, sweat equity. Yeah. You're just investing your time on knocking on doors. That for me was the toughest part. Yeah. That the return versus what you're putting out there, the ratio is very imbalanced in the early days.
Correct.
And so, and the other thing that I didn't account for, you see, theoretically moving out of corporate and doing my own business made a ton of sense. The thing I didn't account for was that the only money I could get or I could earn was for products that we were delivering, but how much of my week did I deliver, or how much time per week did I allocate to my delivery to my clients? I didn't have 5 days worth of delivery time. I only had a fraction of that because I had to spend all my time on all the other steps of the business. Like the selling. The selling is not delivery.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
The building out the networks, the marketing aspect, right? Trying to get that list of people that I could actually go to for business. All of that took so much time. The planning, the staffing up, the early days of staffing up. There's no processes, there's no HR, there's nothing. Yeah. So much time goes in all of those activities that your net delivery time gets less and less and less. But you can only get paid for what you deliver. Yeah. So balancing, doing that fine balancing act from a time management point of view on like how do you manage your delivery time versus all the other demands so that you can still earn enough to be viable. That is the trick. And I think that's what I found a lot very difficult.
Yeah, I also think that, when you approached us and, you came there with this price of, dollars, you don't find too many small businesses or startups able to pay that from their own pockets, right? Yeah. So it's a very difficult sell, especially when you're starting up. Yeah. But I'm not too sure if you did the same thing then. Or did you pivot from there?
Pricing-wise, you're asking the right question. I made tons of errors on that even. At some point, I think we were priced too low. So even though we were booking work, we were not viable. We weren't able to truly do the work that we needed to do. I must say, touch wood, we weren't very unviable that we were just like teetering at the edge, right? Then I had to adjust the price point in a way where I felt it was the right combination of going a little bit further up the value chain. So we had to go slightly higher up in the
Yes.
market. We couldn't just go to any person out there who needed services. And then we had to package our value in a way where we'd rather do our work for fewer customers who are willing to pay a bit more,
Yeah.
and then get a lot more value out of that engagement.
Okay.
So we found a happy medium, which so far tends to be working.
Okay.
Yeah.
And would you say that, okay, this is my perspective on it, but international clients versus the South African, okay, I can't say South African clients because we serve them obviously, but international prospects and South African prospects, do you find that South Africans are more of penny pinchers compared to, let's say, people from the US and Europe and that? What differences do you notice in dealing with such customers?
No, I'll have a go, and then you can tell me your take on it. You want to ask me this one, right? So basically, I think there's a very big difference between South African clients and international clients. But I don't think it's about money. I think South African clients pay handsomely. I think given our economic situation, given all the difficulties we face as a country, economically speaking, I'm impressed, I'm consistently impressed at the fact that our South African clients will pay. Because I could go to American clients, for example, clients in the US, and they are willing to pay a bit more, but not by a mile. You know, they still will put you through your paces for a particular size of deal. So yes, is there some differential in pricing? Absolutely, but definitely not as big as I initially thought it would be. Where I find the biggest difference with South African customers is, and this is quite a blanket statement, so let me request forgiveness in advance before I make my bold statement. I just, in general, remember, we're doing marketing services.
Yeah.
We're going into a team and we're working with that team, in concert with the team, and we're deploying a marketing workflow to build up the pipeline of that organization, the tech pipeline of that organization. That's the game plan, right? So there's a lot of reliance on our client. We're working in tandem with the client. We're working hand in hand, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And what I find is that the level of maturity in terms of sales and marketing processes is, in general, like a generic statement in the B2B space, that the segment that we serve tends to be a little bit underdeveloped compared to, for example, our clients in Europe or clients in the US. I find when it comes to sales and marketing.
But is that not a SaaS solution that they need to implement to manage that process, or where do you think the gap is?
I think this maturity that I'm referring to is just a simple, maybe perhaps even a project management maturity that I feel we lack in terms of our middle management layer in our country.
Yeah, I think you're right about that, because that's a skills-based thing, and you need to have a particular human being in the organization who has that skill to make sure that you're going to go through this whole process.
Yeah, absolutely. There's that.
Yeah.
But also remember that individual, if they show up in a South African entity right now, are they supported by the relevant processes and systems and the same person doing that job in the US, that person would have grown up in a whole bunch of systems and processes and templates and even a vernacular, so that right now a lot of the people we deal with, they have to go and sell a concept to their management. Whereas in the US, that concept is like common vernacular. Everyone's speaking that language. Everyone's like, this concept has been around for 20 years.
Yes, yeah.
So we're totally cool with that, We expect it to take that long, or we expect that this is a reasonable time frame and these are the deliverables. And like in South Africa, we are quite accustomed to this. There's a lot of teaching. You got to teach, especially in that fraternity where you are taking niche marketing solutions. Now remember, we're taking very mature marketing solutions, not your run-of-the-mill, hey, let's do an event. We're taking some of the more sophisticated content marketing applications to our customers. And we'd expect that they know a lot of the stuff, but we do a lot of teaching, so that's okay. And I find, like, say we're working with a US client, it's a very unusual situation, but every now and then we'll be like, oh shit, we didn't know that. We'll be like, oh, they're teaching us a thing or two, and that shakes us up a little bit. So I definitely feel there's a disparity, but it's more to do with, how mature is the domain of marketing? And I'm not making a reference to a client or to a person. It's the field of marketing in tech is not as mature as it is in the more developed countries.
Yeah.
And on your side, Damian, what's the maturity of your market compared to the South African market compared to our international markets in the telecommunications space?
Yeah, well, we are in the ICT industry, and South Africa is probably the king of the continent. Our market is valued at over 500 US billion in ICT in South Africa, and we have a lot of good technology in this space. So from a maturity perspective, I think we have a lot of good tech in South Africa, and the problem that we face is that government is not propelling the maturity of the technology. For example, IoT or smart cities or smart villages. We still have to get there. Broadband is not in every single community or village or township, but we have some of the best connectivity in the world. I travel across the world all the time. Same with you. And if you look at the technology and the infrastructure we have leading world-class technology and infrastructure. But the problem is it's not getting to everywhere around SA. So we have a really great matured market, and hence the reason why for the likes of the big telcos, the Vodacoms and the MTNs, they need to pivot into something new. So you're taking a mobile business and now you're pivoting into fixed line and IoT and cybersecurity, AI and robotics and all these digitization tools where we can do all these things, but the companies are not spending the money to get there. And that's where we see the gaps. That there's a lot of businesses still need to get to where we need to get to at, like you're saying about the SMEs or businesses from a process or a project management tool or a software as a service. So I think there's a lot of work to be done, but there's still a lot of play in the market for us to make a lot of money and mobilize us as an organization. Innova as an organization in South Africa has been nominated as one of the fastest growing companies in Africa. Top 13 top 20, 13 in SA and in Kenya. So, we saw the need to launch an organization in Kenya based because of the technology that we have and the tools that we have. And we launched a company last year. And the market is very, it's open. I just presented to a government organization this week called Konza, and they're actually building smart cities in Kenya. And we just been onboarded they want to host our software as a service in their data center. They want to resell our services. They want to use some of our technology. They want us to do skills transfer. So, in the African continent, there's a lot of opportunity with what we do.
And like to my earlier point where I mentioned that the staying above the crowd or staying oppressed over the crowded market, how do you differentiate yourself between the likes of the Vodacoms of the world or the MTNs and that?
I think the first thing for us as an organization, but also a small business, we understand that we're competing with them. But at the same time, we're actually working parallel with them because we give them a lot of business when it comes to fixed line services, cloud services, or hosting. So as an organization, we need to constantly upskill ourselves when it comes to the latest technology. We partners with quite a few brands for the likes of Fortinet, Sophos, Kaspersky, Veeam, Dell, HP. So as an organization, I need to make sure that, number one, I'm skilled. My staff are going on the courses that they're skilled. We spend a lot of money on getting them to be trained and skilled. And then on top of that, understanding that what is the next best thing that's coming out in the world. So I personally go to a lot of conferences, GITEX in Dubai, there was a GITEX in Morocco recently. So getting out there to understand what is the latest technology and are you skilling yourself and getting certified on it? Do you have the competency in these technologies? And are you rolling out these technologies faster than the bigger companies? And as a small business, we are more agile. We can launch and roll out a service faster than the big corporate. And that's the kind of thinking that I utilize in the organization to make sure that am I faster than a Vodacom and an MTN or a big telco? So that's the kind of thing that I do. To give you an example, we're looking at, so we play in the SD-WAN space and connectivity. So SD-WAN is a big thing in South Africa, moving from MPLS to software-defined networking. So Vodacom and all the big guys are rolling out SD-WAN. But the latest thing is SaaS. And Aruba, HP Aruba, bought out Silver Peaks, and we were one of the first Silver Peaks partners in South Africa 10 years ago. And now software as a service on the enterprise side, on the networking side, you don't need a firewall or a box or an appliance to put down. Everything is moving to the cloud. So everything that you do now is all cloud-based. So you don't need to go to every single one of your sites and roll out a box. Everything can be provisioned from the cloud. So we are now becoming certified in the Silver Peaks HP Aruba SASE product, and we're going to be implementing some of these services. So, which means that I will just buy the connectivity from Vodacom, and I will use Aruba for a SD-WAN solution.
So would you say that it's super important for you to stay agile as a small startup that's just putting the foot into the water?
Absolutely. I think, like in the startup world, everyone talks about being agile. You gotta pivot and you gotta be agile. And yes, you have to, because in a corporate environment, when we worked in corporate, you got to have a business requirement and it's got to go through a process and it's got to be tested. And by the time this entire product needs to be pushed into a system, it's going to take you 6 months to 1 year. Whereas as a small business, if you're not agile and you're not pivoting fast enough, you're going to get left behind. Now, especially in the market or in the environment we're in right now in the world globally, the slower you are to respond, the faster you're going to be disrupted. So, I think these corporates as well need to understand we need to be agile and we need to move faster. And especially for a small business, you have to be agile. You have to have a change process that's very adaptable, very quick. Your people need to manage change also very quick, and you can be ahead of the game.
And on your side, KG, the importance of being agile in marketing and especially performance marketing, I know it plays a large role in what you do at BlackBox.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting is that we have a dilemma, which I know you would know well. I hope you do.
Yeah.
It's on the one hand, you got to stay the course,
Yeah.
but on the other hand, you'd have to be a little bit flexible along the way, right? So in marketing, how this shows up is that you have to be willing to iterate. You have to be willing to try, and it might not work, and you have to iterate, and you have to iterate super fast.
Mm.
But what doesn't change is that you have to stay the course, and I think that's the difficulty that we struggle with. And I think that's also, to your prior question, maybe where South Africa is a little bit different.
Yeah.
I think because of the pressure of the market, we tend to be impatient. We really want to see results overnight.
Mm.
And sometimes what happens is because we don't have the fuel in the fire to fund a 1-year trial period on something, we tend to be very hasty about it. We make it a quarter, we make it max 2 quarters, and if we don't see the results, we turn it off.
Yes, yeah.
And I think that mentality as a whole describes a lot of the entrepreneurial challenges we have here in Africa as a whole, and specifically South Africa, Like if you really look at some of the big guys in the US, how they made it was just their mindset is they stay the course.
Yeah, but the thing is, when we're looking at a small or medium business, and you can define that from 50 employees to 150 or 200. For me, even as a small business, like, do I have that funds to constantly just?
But that's the whole thing. That's the whole thing. You know what it comes down to? It comes down to the availability of money.
Yeah.
That's the fact of the matter, because anything can endure in the presence of cash.
Yes.
And that was my polite way of referring to the fuel in the fire.
Yeah.
Because as long as you have money to throw at the problem for a good 1 year, without that having a material impact on your bottom line and overall business, then you're good. And I think in general, we suffer that affliction in South Africa.
But I also think that, like if you have a really great idea and a great business model and a great business, and if you have a venture capital or an angel investor that's throwing in the money and you can do that, great. The problem is we don't have that in South Africa.
That overall infrastructure, the funding infrastructure, is so immature. I mean, it's growing, and Cape Town, South Africa, is still seen very much as the largest recipient.
But the problem is that all these venture capitalists are looking for those unicorns.
Yeah.
I just come back from Israel in June.
Yeah.
They have a tech ecosystem that I've never seen anywhere else in the world. They are the third biggest tech ecosystem in the world. Now, for example, like Black Fox, if you have to go and pitch for something, there's someone in the ecosystem who will say to you, Black Fox is positioned right there, go and you're going to get someone to help you there. They have someone to help you there. If you need to go into a lab to test your product, there's a lab, there's a facility there. If you need to go and do some research, there's a facility for research. They have an ecosystem that is going to help you along the journey and wherever you are on the journey. No one's going to turn off the tap on you.
Yeah.
And the other thing is that in Israel, there's 2,000 startups that are launched every single month. So, and there's a lot of funding that come into it.
Yeah.
So, whereas, if I have an idea, I never received any funding from my business. I mean, we one of the fastest growing business. But if I had the funds that was pumped into the business, and we would have continued to, because you have to market. How do you stay abreast? How do you keep on top of mind on the consumer or a business? You got to invest in the marketing. And that's what we've done during lockdown. In 2020, we decided that we're going to build our own PABX. And we decided we're going to go out there and build this software. And we built our PABX in our contact center. And previously, we were reselling Vodacoms and some other providers. And now we don't need to do that. So we can provide 100% uptime on our product. We can give you a better pricing. And now we own that product instead of us reselling someone else's.
Yeah.
So I think in the tough times, you have to invest and you have to spend. And that's how you're going to build a really great business.
Yeah, yeah.
And wouldn't that also boil down to, let's say you have a client, instead of selling months to the client, would you not say there's also the aspect of being customer centric? Like, what's the importance of being customer centric when selling and doing things in the best value of your prospecting client or current clients?
Yeah, I think customer centricity translates into customer obsession. And I think for us as an organization, it is vitally important for us to have a support team to make sure that if our customers are unhappy and if they log a ticket, do we have somebody that's going to resolve that ticket 24/7? Secondly, the customer experience is vitally important, because if the customer has a great experience, whether telephonically, on social media, email, personally, they want to do business with you.
Yeah.
Coupled to that is obviously the experience as well as the customer service. And I think for us as an organization, we actually are very customer centric and I'm customer obsessed. And I want to make sure that, if we get a lead, that someone in the organization contacts that lead within 12 to 24 hours. If there's a ticket coming into, if there's a problem with, the internet or their voice, is there someone responding to that in the next 20 minutes or half an hour? So we use some systems called Live Agent, which is an ITIL approved system. And somebody gets a ticket and we need to resolve the ticket. So some of the customers that we look after is for the likes of the Western Cape Disaster Management Center, the city of Cape Town. So if you think about right now, we have in Cape Town, we have this major storms and rains. Now, you got thousands of people calling into the city of Cape Town, logging a ticket for that tree that fell on the road, or they're calling into the call center. And if you've got 1,000 people calling into the Cape Town call center, that call center needs to facilitate that call. If that number is down or the bandwidth is not big enough to allow the call through, the city of Cape Town will call us. So we need to be also very agile. So we have to manage that line to make sure that is the bandwidth enough, the throughput enough to send the calls through? And if it's not, are we doing something on the back end, which they don't know about, but we do, so we increase the bandwidth. Secondly, that line needs to be operational 24/7, 365 days a year. Now, if the municipal manager, the mayor, or the premier sends us an email, we need to jump off our seats and respond to that immediately. So that's the customer service or the customer experience and the customer obsession we have, is that when we build a solution for the client, we need to make sure that that solution does not break. Right now, we also support the Western Cape Disaster Management Center. We do all the audio-visual and internet connectivity. So there's a major problem in the Western Cape right now. So we're supporting the City of Cape Town and the Western Cape Disaster Management. So if your customer service is not packaged the way the client wants, they can really turn off the clock or the tap tomorrow and you without that customer.
Yeah.
So it's important that how you build your solution has to be also customer centric, but also your solution needs to be best of breed, that it's not going to fail in times of disaster.
And I think what you're saying there is that when you're thinking customer centricity, you're not thinking only in terms of your customer, but their customers.
Absolutely.
And giving their customers a good experience.
Yes.
And as long as you focus down to that level of the value chain, then you'll be okay.
Correct. Because at the end of the day, your customer has customers that's going to be impacted.
Yeah.
And you need to make sure that you're delivering to their customers as well.
Yeah.
And for me, that's how we package our solution. And we want to make sure that that solution does not break, because as long as it does not break and they servicing or supporting their customers, we know that you're gonna build a great solution. But I mean, customer service and customer centricity and customer obsession has to be crucial in your value chain in your business. Otherwise, your customers will leave.
Yeah, 100%. And KJ, I know you feel extremely strong on this point of client centricity. Would you like to add anything to that before I move on to our next point?
I mean, I think you covered it well. I think it's not just about focusing on your customer, but focusing on what their customers are experiencing from them.
Yeah.
And it's really taking ownership across the board. And I think that, we try to get that right as well. And I think that sometimes in our game, the work that we have to do to be really customer centric, because we are a project driven business, right? So we're doing these projects and they, slightly more substantial. And it's not like we're offering a service to a whole bunch of companies.
Yeah.
We're very selective about the few companies we work with from a capacity point of view. So I think that from our side, it's about really being as knowledgeable as we can be. That's what it comes down to. I mean, I think the one thing we cracked is we got a team that really, really works hard for every single client, and I think it shows up. Mm-hmm. And our hardest thing is that we work with that client to represent products that are not our own. So when we come and we work with you, we're representing your product portfolio. So our team has to know your product portfolio as well as you do in a short space of time. And unless we crack that and get that right, we can't represent your product to the market. And I think that's where our real client centricity or vision for client centricity, that's where it hits home for us. Are we living up to that standard? Are we living up to that gold standard where we can confidently say we really understand the product portfolio of our clients, and can we take that to market? Like my inside sort of gauge in this area is, if I know I can sell your product, I can pick up the phone and I can sell your product to a client on my own, and I know I'm gonna get a close, then I feel I can act for you. Mm-hmm. And making sure that lives within each and every team member, and getting that level of ownership into every single team member where we have that as our standard, that we will not act for a client unless we can pick up the phone and close a deal on our own. Like, that certainty that you just go, I got this. Yeah. I know exactly the thing to say, because that's your clincher. And if every one of us could reach that gold standard, I think that would be where I would really want us to operate as a team. And maybe we should make that a rule, or we should make that a policy. But the problem with that is that it's a very big, bold goal. Yeah. But like, if we could get to that point where every single team member felt that strongly about our clients' products, I feel that would be a win for us. And candidly, I don't think we're there yet, where we are officially acting, every single one of us in the team, where we are representing not Black Fox, but we're representing our clients' products. Yeah. Like, we can close every single, or at least we can close the flagship product.
Yeah. Okay, and so tell me a bit about how this relationship came about, the relationship between Black Fox and Innova.
Yeah, I think the relationship was, twofold. Number one was Black Fox approached Innova through one of our, stakeholders.
Yes.
And Kerushan came over to us and he presented what he could do for us from a marketing perspective. At that time, he did a really great presentation, and all these bofus and mofus and whatever foos else he spoke about. And he then hit me with a price of $15,000, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then at that time, I thought one of our stakeholders is going to basically fund us for this campaign. I was expecting that. But I really loved what you presented and how you were going to help us grow as an organization. And the funder never came to the party, so we had to basically fund the entire campaign ourselves. And that's how the relationship started. And then you guys started with our account, and we proceeded. And then I think on top of that, I then asked probably you or someone else, you don't have a telephone system in your organization, can we sponsor you a telephone? And Kerushan said, yes, well, why not? So we decided to sponsor you a hosted PBX, and you just paid for the calls. Yeah. And that's how the relationship started.
And remember, we also used that idea. We sent that message out to a whole bunch of people.
Yes, yeah, we did a campaign for that. For the NGO.
Exactly. So you gave that as an offer to us, and then we extended that into
The marketing campaign,
like
yes.
a packaged campaign.
That's right.
And then I know a whole bunch of people were interested in that.
Yes, we did. We did sign up a few NGOs. So that became a campaign, and that's how the relationship basically transgressed.
Awesome.
And now we sitting and having a podcast together.
Yeah. And he's just down the road. You didn't say that part.
Yeah, just down the road.
Yeah.
In Century City.
Yeah.
And before we close out, what's one piece of advice that you would give to a startup business if they were starting right now in South Africa?
I think the one piece of advice that I would give to any startup is that number one is you have to believe in yourself, believe in your product. You are going to get the naysayers and the haters who are going to say it's not going to happen, it's never going to work. But I think if you truly and honestly believe in who you are and believe in the product or service that you can deliver, you should continue to stick with it and persevere and make sure that you can see it to the end. And I mean, we could look at the likes of Colonel Sanders and Raymond Kroc, at what they did and what they invented at what age they did as well. And they believed in themselves, and now they have a global organization. So I think we tend to go to many other people, whether it's family, friends, or fools, and they tell you it's not going to work or it's a crap idea. And yes, there are many crap ideas out there, but if you can make it work and if you can execute it faster than somebody else, you can build a good business.
Yeah, it's powerful. And you, KG?
Yeah, I think that be ruthless in your war against distractions. Because I think that for me is the make-break point of any idea. Even what you're calling the crap idea, sometimes that crap idea might be able to grow legs if you're ruthless against all of the distractions that befall not just entrepreneurs, but I think anyone, right? We are all subject to distractions in this thing called life. There's financial pressures, there's pressure from family and friends, there's internal pressures, dissatisfactions that we all experience. And then even if we move beyond that to the more tangible real life distractions, you arrive at work, there's 20,000 things you have to focus on, people coming to you for approvals, people swinging around their chair constantly asking you, hey, can you do this one thing for me? So there's just so much distraction, being able to fend that off, in a very, very intentional way, not by chance. You are intentional about what you admit into your zone and what you exclude from your zone. I think that getting that right is a constant battle. It's never something that you can just arrive one day and go, I'm totally perfect at it. But I think that is factually the make-break point, because even when you start in your company, staying true to that thing that you feel is going to work, despite the fact that you go and you speak to this one potential customer, or you speak to a stakeholder, or you speak to a vendor, and they say, oh, that's great, why don't you just do it this way? Because they're covering their interests, you see? So they're going to speak from their vantage point. So to stay true to what you believe is your business and your model and your product and what you're going to be selling for money, staying true to that and just making sure that everything comes down to that one transaction, including when you're going and you're bidding for a deal and then they're telling you, oh, that's great, we have money in this part for this and we have money in that part for something else, and the next thing you walk away, you think, maybe I should be doing something in that other area because there's money available. Not staying true to this one thing where they don't have money available, so now you have to walk away from the deal. That down to that level of focus, so that you can just push through and get your job done for the day, that's the single most difficult thing. And I will say, from an advice point of view, just build that muscle. Wherever you are, even if you are in corporate right now, you have a day job, build that muscle. And the ability, and I think we've got a blog on this somewhere along the line, the ability, harnessing that ability to say no to the wrong things. And there's some things in life that we know we should be saying no to, because maybe they things that are not good for us, they're not good for our families, they're not good choices, right? So it's down to that level of just saying no to that kind of stuff. And then as you come up the line, there's even other things that seem exciting or seem like a cool venture, a cool thing to get involved in, and you've got to learn to say no to that, and you've got to learn to say no, and you've got to learn to say no more and more and more. And the more you do that, the more you build that muscle, that ability to just say no comfortably and still be who you are and stay true to your own goals. That I think harnessing that skill, mastering that skill, no matter where you are today, employed, entrepreneurial, or otherwise, whether you're still in school, just harness that ability, shape that ability, and I think that's the biggest ticket out of here. Yeah,
I think this conversation has been really inspiring, especially in me as the the youngest guy at this table.
Which he obviously has to point out. And mind you, he repeatedly points it out to me. I'm surprised he never made a comment in your
I
direction.
do look younger than you, that's why.
He says with a full head of grey hair.
But yeah, thank you, gentlemen, for joining me in today's podcast. I would like to thank you both for giving great insights into the
Did
startup.
you say great insights or great insights?
Great insights.
You gotta listen attentively.
But yeah, thank you for joining me today, and for those that are watching, thank you for joining us for this insightful conversation. If you like what you've seen, leave a like below and comment what was your best bits. And don't forget to give a follow over to networks and Black Box.
Awesome stuff. Thank you very much.